seated for the meeting, correct?
I do. Yep.
Tony, you wish to have Rob set for you?
Yeah, that's fine. As long as you guys are gonna listen to my opinions.
Nope. Just give me a rougher meeting than others.
No alternates.
Rob will be. Okay, so I'll call the meeting to order and it is now 8:36. Thanks, Bill. I've established a quorum, but we do need to, we would like to set Rob for Tony for his request. I'll entertain a motion.
I nominate Rob to seat for Tony.
Yes. All right, so first, second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So we've established a quorum. Rob is now sitting for Tony Pellegrino. Approve the minutes of March 13th, 2024 regular meeting.
No one else read them yet. I make a motion, we approve the minutes as submitted.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Dave Walsh. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous? Okay, good. I'd like to speak a little bit on the next thing. We're having discussion and possible action on the proposed budgets. John did hand out something which goes along the line with illustrations that I gave at the last meeting. And these are not recommendations, but they're illustrations. And we used a little bit of history on budget being proposed, how much the town would approve for, the town would vote for. And this just gave illustrations of if you did a cut of this much, this is what it would do to the mill rate. Because currently we're looking at mill rate increase with no reduction of 2.55 mils, which would bring the total mill rate to 39.31 or 6.94 increase. 1 mil is equal to 874, 461. Everybody on the stage with me here? Okay. To help frame the discussion, like I said, we put down some different items here. You know, one is using ARPA funds. We'll talk a little bit more about, as well as some other ways of reducing the budget. And we always strive to be at a point where it's fair to the town. We're providing the services that we need to. And at the same time, something that the town will accept and vote for in their taxes. So if you take a look to these options here, there is, let me know when you're all set, because there's one more illustration I'd like to point out. I think it's pretty important. Everybody's all set? Okay. John, what's the proposed mill rate on that last?
So based on the, so it would be the same situation for reduction of paving by 300,000. And then the 335 that we just wrote on the presentation, that mill rate would now be 3.859, an increase of 1.83 or 4.967%.
Okay, I'm sorry, you said 3.859.
Yep, I'll say it again. So the mill rate under for their reduction in paving the 300 and the 335 that we just heard, that mill rate would then be 3.859. That's a 1.83 mils increase from the 36.76 that we're currently at. For percentages, that's 4.967%.
All right, the reason why I want to bring up this illustration, I don't know if everybody understood exactly what John was referring to, is that Mr. Macchio brought it up regarding the 210,000. So this is a way we have that we can actually reduce their budget without taking anything away from them by using the long name account for capital improvements.
Yeah.
So basically we could say, look, we want you to cut your budget by $210,000. The Board of Finance would then have to approve him to be able to use the money for that other capital fund. He also has the additional saving that he presented tonight, which it seems to be a pretty, he feels pretty comfortable about the board. And that is 125,000. So with those two numbers in mind, I feel as though at a minimum, I don't know why it wouldn't be a minimum, but we're not cutting them. We're just requesting what they give us for the savings.
Can you repeat the two figures, please?
Excuse me?
Can you repeat the two figures?
The $125,000
Yeah, okay.
is the savings that Mr. Macchio is going to present to the
Yeah.
Board of Education on April 1st. The 210,000 is money that's in the capital expenditure fund that we can approve for them to use for items that are in their budget this year. So in this scenario,
Sorry, and the third piece was the 300,000 from paving,
yeah.
that would be replaced by our, did you guys, sorry?
Yep.
So the 335 would be in this scenario, a proposed reduction to the Board of Education without hurting any of what they've got in their budget or program. The second piece of this would be $300,000 reduction from the Board of Finance. I've already discussed this with First Selectman Morrison, Board of Selectmen, the Board of Selectmen. And that 300,000 could come in a reduction of the paving budget. Now, that doesn't mean, I don't think the paving budget is really important, it is. But with discussions with the ARPA committee, we feel as though it's not 100% ever until it goes through the committee. But that 300,000 could be replaced by ARPA. So in other words, making these two reductions of 300,000 for paving, 335 from the Board of Education for those dollars would now bring us down to a 1.83 mil increase. Still higher than the town has passed any time in the recent future. But it's just a guideline to look at as far as this is what we can do without really affecting the budget that's been put forward. It shouldn't hurt the paving, so it's not going to hurt any of the programs at the Board of Ed.
All right, I want to just say one thing. I want to thank you and John. The transparency here was tremendous. I knew that the ARPA funds would be used to bill to the cuts in the town. So when you talked about a 1/3, 2/3 cut, the 1/3 of the town really wasn't as real as it would be for the Board of Ed. You had all that indicated. Congratulations. That was a good move. And it's absolutely transparent. And it gives us a lot of things to think about.
Good. So that's pretty much the illustration that was given. Now it's really up to the board as a whole to decide what they want to do. Do we want to take action? Do we want to take action as far as reducing the budgets tonight? The Board of Education has given an indication that it's really important that, or to them, it's important that we move ahead as quickly as possible. Just for the fact of they need to get on with what they're doing. And I think the town is supporting too. In other words, I think anything that we decide to not do tonight, personal opinion, not that I know more, a minimum of this amount. If we want to wait on it, I think that what you're thinking is that you might want to do further cuts, which I would understand. That's totally up to you. And with that, I've said my piece on it. And
Good. All right, so capital expenditure funds are very important to the town. And they're basically the savings in emergency fund. So it's not like it's coming from nowhere. So just so everybody understands what a capital expenditure fund is. So it's something that in our town budgets, I think has been ignored for, I don't know, millennia. And it's very important that we have those. So even if we choose to do that, it's not free money. It's saying we're going to spend some of our savings. So if we, if it was your household income, so if you have a tough month next month, then we're going to have to take something from somewhere else to pay the mortgage. So, it is important. I don't disagree with it, but I don't want to overlook the importance of capital expenditure.
I agree with 100%. And given that and our reserves being at a relatively low level, those two combined things, it does get scary to your point, Tony, if we suddenly had something pop up unexpected, that would really be it would hurt.
Bill, could you explain the difference between the capital expenditure account and the capital improvement account you're talking about starting?
Yep, so we're starting at capital improvements, the CIP, capital improvements. This line item has $50,000 that we earmarked for that, just for the Board of Select, not the Board of Education. Nice, that's there. And all of it, this would be a fund that we would start to build for capital projects. My thought was someday we could do a project, you know, use paving because it's just so, that it's just so popular. That maybe we wouldn't have to go up the bond, we would have a capital line item that we could draw from. And continually to build that year, take some away from it, it wouldn't have to buy it and incur interest on a project. That would be my philosophy.
But the philosophy of both of those funds are closely related. They're backup.
Yeah, the only difference is that the capital projects have already been earmarked, there's already a balance there that's due. But the CIP is in an account that we haven't touched, and to my recommendation, we would do that, that built to a point where we could use it effectively.
You know, speak to it, Steve?
I just, the very long name that we use, the non-lapsing unexpended fund is the 210,000 is a reserve fund for capital improvements for the school district.
Right.
It's right. I just,
Oh, no, I understand
okay,
that.
I didn't, I
No, I know.
I was
your
sensing,
budget.
I was
Yeah.
sensing the difference between the capital improvement, the non-lapsing
No,
fund, and the reserve.
I appreciate that.
No.
I know.
I would agree with you. If we use the 210, I don't have a reserve fund for if something district-wide catastrophic happens.
Sure.
You're right, I'll be sitting in
I'm
front
a
of you
building
guys.
guy. I think a building.
Right, yeah, you know, like, well, that's exactly what,
So that fund right now only has 210,000 in.
actually, the fund has 186,000 in it. And then I would be looking, we have about $25,000 within our budget that I could utilize the proceeds from the borough school to pay for, because it's directly related to West Stafford School. So that's
Yeah.
how we came up with
And the rest is lunch money.
The actual number in that account right now is over 400,000. Counting the funds that came to the borough school. What Steve's referring to is that anything that came to the borough school sale can only be used toward elementary schools, correct?
Correct, West Stafford or Stafford Elementary.
So that's why we were limited on what it could be used for. So he's not using all the money, all the money there. So we're using about half of the money that's in the fund. But I'm sure you have, plans down the road for it.
And we had talked about the connection to the water line, West Stafford School. That would be borough school proceeds. That I didn't even put that in my budget because I knew that we had the borough school proceeds that we.
And during this budget or during this year of the water finance, you become more acquainted with it because they have to come to us to ask for money to come on road.
Yes.
Okay,
How much did the school sell for? I don't know.
I'm trying to.
we went to the school, so.
The borough.
Borough school,
How much did it sell for?
254,000, I think is the proceeds.
254. I think our net was like 230.
Yeah, I was right.
Yeah. Is that correct, John? About 235?
That sounds about right, yes.
So the 235 on top of the 186 that was already there, there's a total of that funding. And that's where Steve determined that there was 210,000 of eligible projects that he could spend that money on. And that's why this is going to option.
Good. Well, I just want to say something. I like that option, the 1.69. I think I'm sorry, of the.
1.83.
1.83. Yeah, and I know what will happen if you don't. We're all talking about there's a catastrophe. There's already a catastrophe. Drive up the road, you'll see it. Losing 21 positions in 1 year, professional people, they may not be able to get that. And so I think, it's still below 2 mils. It's gonna be below you can see from the materials Department of Ed gives out, it's probably gonna be one of the lower mill rate increases around. I think it reflects reality better than any of the others.
And
So
Mr.
that's
Chairman,
why
I'd like to make a motion to push these budgets forward as they presented.
Without any of these.
That's-
So
I think we had a lot of support here tonight for both sides of that. I think, that it's well deserved.
I would just like to clarify that they've given savings in the budget. So what he presented and what his actual budget is going to be is not the actual goal. So respectfully, I'll disagree, but that's up to us before it's got considered.
Just a clarification, may I?
Sure.
For Mr. Mackey, that money is not, that 325,000 at the end, is not a reduction of the school budget. It's something that, money that will be presented on paper and then brought back to the school's system operations, right? It's not something that you have to cut more. It's money that already exists, isn't it?
The 210.
Both, the 125 and 210.
Right, so for the 210, that will cover things that are already in the budget, so they will still be there. The 125 of it
Hmm.
is savings. So, but it was a variety of different things. So one was revenue from pre-K. There was we locked in the rate for fuel, so that was savings, so there weren't things already taken out of that.
But that money can eventually be reinstated and used.
If we kept it.
Yeah.
So I think that's like what.
Can I just ask a clarifying question?
And then we don't.
Right, because what I hear you saying is, leaving the 3.86 at 3.86.
Mhm.
Removing the 125,000, because those are savings, so the 3.86 is gonna drop down. And then leaving the budget at that new number, this is what I'm hearing, I just want to be sure.
Well,
And
that's actually-
asking for us to have a transfer of funds from the non-lapsing unexpended fund to the town to offset the purchases that we would be making. Is that what?
So the actual motion that Mr. Hatch made
Yeah.
was to just move forward the budget.
Right.
Oh, that one I'm clear on, I'm asking.
Yeah.
about.
So are you saying that with that 125, if we were to leave it as, because we identified those savings, like what would we do with the 125 now that it's saved? If we were to keep it out?
Actually,
That's what.
I think what it's asking is, with these savings, it's not really gonna affect the way that the school runs next year. I think that's what it's asking.
Right, so,
Right.
so we
We
can
will
lower
not.
our 3.86.
Secondly,
Here we
savings
go,
and
finding
savings
people.
tax on.
We are achieving the low cost. The increase in new rate is less because of that $210,000 swap.
Right, and it doesn't, doesn't affect any of your system.
Yeah.
Right.
So before we go any further with discussion, Mr. Hatch has made a motion.
Yeah.
Is there any second then?
When I ask the question before we getting started. When is our next public hearing?
We don't have a schedule.
It's likely to be in this 2 weeks.
It's actually not until April 23rd.
Well, we
We could always move it up if needed, but
talked about the idea of a week before school vacation,
yes.
so that's approximately second week of April.
Second.
That's
Yeah,
not right.
so my
April.
personal feeling
So-
based upon the cuts that the last option I gave there is that if that's what the board were to move ahead with, April 24th. I don't think there's a need for a second budget hearing because it's pretty straightforward. They're not losing anything beyond what they're proposing. And the selectmen would have to, meet to make a $300,000 cut. But there wouldn't be any new information that they're buying.
Plus, I probably will get that money back. Right?
Through our,
Our-
like I said, ARPA would have to approve those funds.
So it's a good possibility.
Yeah.
So it's not mandated that we have another public hearing process?
No,
No, okay.
So that 300,000, are we mandating where it comes from or just?
look, there's always the
300,000?
possibility that ARPA runs out of money tomorrow.
No,
And that he
no,
doesn't have any of it.
yeah, no, what I'm asking, because I don't know, is if we're asking him to cut 300,000 out of the paving budget, or just cut $300,000 out of the budget.
We can only tell them that we want them to cut 300,000 and put
Yeah.
it them,
Right.
but they would cut it some.
Right.
And the board of selectmen would make that.
Yeah.
choice.
Okay, good. We all understand.
Again, is there a second on Mr. Hatch's motion?
Or, can I ask John a question, please? John, with this reduction, the 300,000 and the other 325 in both education, what would be the total, increase of the budget, what would be the percentage in relation to the last year?
Yes, so last year's mill rate was 36.76. With the cuts that we just spoke of,
Yeah.
that would increase the mill rate to 3.859. That's just under 5% increase. That's 1.83 mils.
Can you figure out median?
So with the median value, and I'm losing last year's 135, that's a 200, that'd be an additional tax of $248.90.
Thank you, sir.
50% increase in the.
Steve, if I could, I'd like to make a clarification. On the ARPA funding, that will only work if in fact there's $300,000 in ARPA. I don't know that it's there. I don't know that we know that. So if it isn't there, and there isn't 300, what is the contingency for that?
There isn't.
It would be five, whatever amount ARPA doesn't finish that. I just want you to know.
I would plan on it being cut by $300,000 and then we can go and deal with ARPA because there's ARPA's being pulled in a million different directions, so.
The ARPA funds have to be allocated soon by the end of the year. So we get to that point, if there's that much money left over, they could end up with more than 300,000. They could have less than 300,000, but we think there's a good chunk of money there. And I'm looking at this as sort of like, how do we approve the budget? Pretty much as given.
Yeah.
That will best fund the town service and that the taxpayers will accept. So I think 300,000, they could make that up next year because somebody posted online something along the lines of, what's $1 million going to be for paving? And I don't want to keep having $1 million increase every year for paving. But the reality of it is, once it's in there, it's not an increase next year. It's part of the budget. So this could be a stepping stone. Hey, next year we have 700, but next year we can do the full $1 million.
Right.
Like I said, we're just trying to get there in increments.
Right.
We need to address the paving. So the last thing I want to see is that we need to put out a budget, which it has every single year for.
Right.
you know,
But-
this century.
But the ARPA funds were, you know, a lot of people treat them like it was free money that was thrown at the town. There was a very specific plan behind those funds. And I don't even know if paving New City Road fits into that. So I wouldn't plan on being able to pay for it with it. If others come.
I think the information sheet for that, money for town paving is acceptable use of ARPA funds, correct?
If it's claimed with under the revenue loss category.
Which we can do.
All right.
Recall, I'm using last year's median data, so that we don't have those in there, but that's.
Yeah, it's close.
That's an approximate.
Thank you very much.
a reasonable approximate.
75 cents a day.
That's my second. Voice.
No person will say.
Right.
So I'm going, since we don't have a section on, second on lake motions, there's a motion to die at this point, John, or? Yeah.
Yes,
So the motion, yeah, so the motion to die, any further discussion, any additional or further motion?
Well, I think I'd like to make a motion, for the jump from A3 mills. 4.96% increase.
What we're looking at.
Yeah, option 4.
That last option.
which is really a modified version of the original of the first one, right?
It's the one we've been discussing now.
Right, right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the 335 from the Board of Ed that we.
Right.
paid for, And the 300 from the town.
Yeah, second.
So we have a first and a second on that motion. Is there any discussion?
Again, everything seems reasonable with what they're asking for. To somebody's point, I think it was yours, Steve, or somebody's, the biggest increase in the last 10 years was right around 1. Much better presentation than last year where we presented a 3.63, I think the first time in terms of total percentage. I'm sorry, in terms of bill rate. And I think it was almost a 10% increase. So, I guess I think it's low enough that we can bring it to the voters and it won't be high enough that people will be all, up in arms like they were last year and kind of let them have their say on it. I think enough work was done between all of our discussions between the three groups and the two other bodies on their own to bring it to a point where it's at least presentable and not at risk of being, just blown out of the water.
I agree. I think that you guys got enough feedback about the list. Keeping the paving in there is important. I've never seen anybody at the meeting speak as strongly as the gentleman did today. About the paving. I think it's important.
I think you're gonna have to drive around for the next week or two and build in a paving truck and just wave a sign around town to get people on board with the idea that a lot of this money is for fixing the roads.
Many of the people who spoke, I've actually met, the gentleman that was here, up on Hinton Road, Crow Hill Road. Those people who are actually saying, I see the roads. I spend Fridays and Saturdays doing it. They are truthful and they are real, and they're passionate about the paving project. This could be the beginning of starting a program, and that's where Deb and I were speaking. It's not just today, 850,000. It's a program that was started.
Any further discussion about the motion that the first and second?
Yeah, I just want to say that having the presentation of the roads, which I attended, and school going around to all the different locations and talking to people. And I was at the meeting last year and it was awful. I left here and it's just an awful feeling. I know many of you were here as well. I didn't think, well, it wasn't about us being at the kid tape. But it just was just a different mood today. It was just, in my opinion, kudos to everybody that put in all this time and effort to presenting and doing this today. So that's all I really have to say.
I think this year really helped with a new collaborative effort between all the board.
Yeah,
I think it's made a
it's,
big
you can
difference.
see it. Yeah. Yeah.
Any further discussion about the motion? The motion from Mr. Walsh is that we reduce the Board of Ed by 335,000 and the Board of Selectmen by 300,000, which will end up with a 1.83 mil increase and a 4.96% tax increase.
Just want to clarify. We're gonna go to our board.
Mhm.
I need to have them reduce their budget. The 125 is clear as day. I'm literally taking it out of the budget because it's savings.
Yeah.
Am I asking them to reduce the 210 out of the budget? And we're going to then present to the Board of Finance that list of $210,000 to be purchased. Yes, just wanted to be sure.
Can we actually include that in the motion right now?
You want to be that granny? Sure.
So in other words, we're giving the Board of Ed,
They still have to release those funds, correct?
yeah, we have to, right? So I think what Mr. Macchio was looking for is that the Board of Finance agrees to release 202,000 of that fund to them to pay for the production. Does anybody like to make a
I'd
motion?
like to make an amendment to the motion. Do the transfer of the 210,000.
Second.
Friendly again.
So I have a question about that. So since it's over a certain dollar amount, doesn't it have to go to the Board of Selectmen to approve it?
No, we're talking about next year's budget.
Okay,
Budgetary items will have to go to.
This is a fund release, it's not a transfer.
okay.
Any further discussion?
Steve, can I ask a question before you vote? Would it be looked at as a negative and probably a jeopardizing the vote if it were to be looked at as the paving bill cut at 300,000? So the taxpayer reads tomorrow morning in the free press that said you cut not proportionally. You just simply cut to 50, and of that you're taking 20 theoretically out of paving. That not be looked at as a huge negative.
So we have not taken money out of paving, that would be the Board of Selectmen.
Right, and I understand that. But in the real world, in the transparency, that's what we're talking
Talking
about.
about the perception.
Right, what's the perception? Now I'm mad. Now I'm not gonna vote, you know, I'm serious about that.
You're still gonna achieve $1 million in payment. That's.
We're gonna
what you
achieve,
said.
we're gonna achieve less than that because I don't believe there's enough ARPA funding to do this. I don't.
Steve, what's the timing of the ARPA fund approval if it were to happen compared to the budget vote.
I think by the end of the year, when we have to make our decisions, it'll probably be that sensible.
Okay, so people will be voting on the budget, not knowing for sure, to Bill's point, whether that 300,000 is gonna be there or not.
it just looks disproportionate. I agree 100% with that. But now you're saying, geez, you took 300 from the Board of Education, you took 300 from the Board of Selectmen, not knowing that in all fairness, we'll get something restored. Probably not 300,000. I just don't think it's there. My experience would say that. So just be careful. I'm just putting a distractor out there. It might not look good now I'm mad. Joe says.
So,
But
so
you're
why
right.
don't you
I think
look,
that needs to be reported though too, but I mean, we're not saying that it's just, because I mean, it says right in there that you're gonna use the ARPA funds. However much it may be, you know what I'm saying? So as long as that's included in the explanation, then it shows that, you know, reasons are completed.
So
Whatever.
we'd have to request a report to have to be covering these things. The discussion has been had about.
I will explain it to the best of my ability.
So I believe that Tony, the motion that Tony made, he was amending the motion by Dave.
Yeah.
So Dave's motion's done. And it's to cut the Board of Education by 335,000. The amendment being that the Board of Finance will approve the $210,000 transfer for your capital improvements and 300,000 for the Board of Selectmen. Tony made the motion.
I said, I accept it as a friend.
Okay, so it's been made, it's been seconded by, what is it? Yeah. You did. Do we have any further discussion?
I just want to ask, didn't ARPA put aside something like $50,000 for the project or something?
We set aside 250 for engineering and potential grant matches. A lot of those have also gone towards engineering of bridges, roads, and other projects of that nature. We also set aside
So engineering
$500,000 for road improvements as well.
engineering could be part of the payment.
So those were two separate appropriations. One was for straight road repairs. We've often gone for grants and we haven't been prepared enough with engineering cost estimates and that sort of information. So the 250 was for those preliminary engineering designs and construction cost estimates.
So you might be in good shape. Okay.
But
You don't want to lose that money.
our remaining funds right now, what has not been appropriated is $130,000, $138.69. We have just under $131,000 as a remaining balance from appropriated projects.
That's a tough hit. Yeah, that is back to the.
So you'll get back 72%, just like with the market from the state.
There's also additional funds that we have appropriated that will not likely be spent, at least done before.
We don't know.
It's a balancing act. Like I said, we're trying to make it whole at 300. It might be a little less, could be a little more. We don't know, and we won't know until we work our way through all the ARPA items. But I think that the consensus is it'll be closer to that than that.
Do we have any of that 250,000 in engineering completed yet?
They're working on it
They're
right
working
now.
on it now.
Yeah, that was for those 4 roadway projects we talked about that at the paving
Okay,
presentation.
so that money is earmarked for those.
Right.
That's all.
they should have finished. The money's gone now.
That's all. I just wanted to make that one.
Any further discussion about the motion?
I missed a little something when I went to do a bio break, but it sounds like, what was communicated to me by my chair and my superintendent is that $210,000 to be leveraged from that non-lapsing account is to, how exactly, that's why I think we're gonna over it down. My understanding, as I listened to the discussion, was that our budget would be adjusted by $125,000 as presented in the, the public hearing. And then that 210 would be a revenue stream into the budget.
No.
So that it could bring down the overall impact of.
I think the cleaner way to do it, and the way that I would see it would be, you would just remove those items from your budget.
But it takes it off the radar. It was similar to the situation that happened
with his predecessors, the interim finance director with the town aid road.
But we're actually putting it on record here. And if Mr. Macchio, once he presents that list, that'll be the list we go by to pay for those. In other words, you will do those projects and the money will be released from that fund based upon the vote we did.
It has been done before, Mr. Chevy. Couple of years ago, 2 years ago, we did the same thing. And the money was reinstated later. The Board of Finance has done this.
Yeah, I'm talking about in regards to their budget, the question that Charmaine is asking. I don't, so I understand what you're saying, I understand how you guys do your budgets or whatever, but I think for the portion of what we're doing, the simplest way is the best way. The town will pay for those out of the budget, the account we have for those. So just removing it from your budget, is the easiest way. You send the bill to the town base. Is there a problem with doing it that way?
Again,
I think probably Charmaine's coming from a concern of, and I don't wanna put words in your mouth, but I'm gonna. One of the major items that I think I put on there was something within the tech replacement plan. So now it's another year of us funding the tech replacement plan a different way, so it's a little bit, it's a cliff. So next year when we're sitting here, we're gonna be looking at that major increase, just to bring it back to sort of where it was.
Well, the town dealing with the same thing on a bigger scale. And I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, we're not asking questions like, what's the minimum we can fund this year? You know what I mean? We're trying to work through this in a way that's gonna make the most sense. And to me, this makes the most sense. John, do you have anything to say to this?
No, I think you're still accomplishing your goal and we're getting a mill rate that's coming down. So you're not foregoing 210 that you need for these capital projects.
no, that's not what again, just in a prior experience, using a revenue stream into the overall, because everybody's in debt on the town budget that goes before the citizens. And so I was expecting, or at least maybe based off of prior knowledge of utilizing other types of funds in a town budget, I misunderstood what you all were offering, because what I thought was being offered was an infusion of a revenue stream into the overall town budget, which brings down the cost to the citizens by $210,000. We then reduce $125,000 that was spoke of during the meeting, which gets up to $325,000, excuse me, $35,000 saving. That's what my
So
misunderstanding
as
of what
we're
the
aware,
plan was.
once we give you a revenue stream, we'll be the approval budget at a certain amount, you're not obligated to spend that money in the budget. So these are items that we've worked out to do such a way to reduce your budget without actually hurting your budget in a way to try and get the budget down. So I would disagree that it's gonna be a revenue stream and more of a, just come out of your budget. You're being paid for by the capital improvement fund, just as you're hooked up to the water, you're not putting that in your budget, right? So that's-
Never was.
That's a separate item. This could be
Even
used
though
the same.
210, we're finance would have to release anyways. So I think we're achieving all the goals we're setting, correct? You
Yes.
have to release those funds.
Yes. And I mean, that's pretty much what we talked about, correct? You guys, both you and Sarah, that was.
Yeah, I just wanted clarity over what I'm doing next month.
Yep.
The next month? Okay.
Yeah.
Where is next month?
Can't be next month.
We don't.
Yeah. Be there next Monday and see what they approve for.
Yeah.
Hey, it's gonna get voted down next Monday. Following Monday, it's gonna pass.
I would say your comment would be, if it's for grant related or similar, I would probably agree with what you think about that is, but because we're wasting funds, that have been set aside for specific purpose, I think this method is not a right thing. It's not. If it isn't, I'm gonna be the first guy to win on it.
So I mean, obviously, this is a cut you have to present to for it also.
Right, so I'm presenting.
Yep.
For this conversation.
Yep.
A
And.
laundry list of things, savings. And items to be removed that equate to 210,000. But to be purchased. Through you.
Good job.
Oh, no,
John's the project manager.
screw you folks.
So, yeah, like I said, this is, and if this motion that we have on the table, if it passes, we've all now agreed to that motion, that's what's gonna happen. So you're not left with, hey, what happens if we don't?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Right. So I
Yeah,
appreciate
no,
the
it's-
amendment. Good.
The amendment will make the board very comfortable.
Yes.
And approve it.
That's why I'm.
On April first.
Hey, wonderful.
Yeah, that's.
Mr. Chairman, I move.
That's different.
No.
Do we have any further discussion? No further discussion? I'll call for a vote on that motion.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye. So it's passed unanimously. So let's get the word out. Let's get this budget passed by the people. Yeah.
Point of order, Steve, what do you think in terms of any meetings on this and what are next steps?
So are we not doing another public hearing?
So I think that, in all last, since we have two selectmen here, I know they can't fully make a decision. But I don't think we need a further budget hearing because we pretty much have, haven't done much of your budget. The only question would be on what the board of selectmen decides to cut out. So I right now, actually, we should have discussion on this with the board. Do you think we need a further budget hearing? Based upon, no, because it'll be very little information. And I think it's important that we move things along, try and get to an early vote, because if we do run the problem, it gives us time so we don't run into a problem at the time.
I don't know. Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
Board of Selectmen have been out about, the Board of Education has been way out about sharing information. People need to see you guys, because I know you think this is it's a good increase. I think it's great. But there are still a lot of people out there who are talking about voting no. You heard that earlier. And so it would be great for them to hear from you all that this is the decision we made, this is why. We think it's good.
Our decision has pretty much been memorialized by the vote,
Right.
and the Board of Finance is really more of a neutral party.
You're not allowed to share your thoughts about it?
I don't think it's proper that we should go out and present either a front door or against the budget.
Could you have some, I mean, you don't wanna do another public hearing, but could you do a Q&A?
I get attacked on a daily basis.
Yeah, look at, each member of the board is more than happy to talk to people about how they feel about it. But I'm going to say that I think the Board of Finance are more of a neutral board. Our job is not to work for the Board of Education or the Board of Selectmen, but for the taxpayer.
Well, I think it's because of the basket decision. I think, I'm not feeling confident about this at all.
We all voted.
Yes. Right, I get that.
So Ms. Light,
Maybe small consolation, the minutes are published.
Yeah.
We'll be sharing it.
And it'll be online and it'll be in the paper and I agree, John.
so Ms. Lighter, you asking for another public hearing?
No, not necessarily. I don't think it has to be another public hearing,
Uh-huh.
because the people that come to the public hearing are generally the people that are already supporting this budget for the most part. You get one or two, but generally it's people who are supporting, you guys supporting everything. It's the people who aren't here, who aren't watching, who aren't reading, who aren't paying attention. And how do we get to them? I don't know what the answer to that is.
Any other problems?
There's
You're right.
more happening than ever before, which is great. I mean, you guys are doing a fantastic job, but I don't know. I think this decision's been made. I don't want to see it just sit until the referendum.
Of course,
Well,
about
I
70%.
think- I-
You know, I know Tony's doing everything he can at Stafford County.
Everything but buying. They're closed.
Yeah.
Where we are right now, what's the earliest we could have a referendum?
We have to have the town meeting first.
Which is how much time to that? Number one, you guys would have to
We can't
approve your
have the
budget,
town
so
meeting, any sooner than 2 weeks after this meeting that we had tonight.
we could do the. So the only problem we could run into is if the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Education don't approve their budget by the. But we can set a town meeting for 2 weeks from now.
A little bit more than that, because we have, John and I need to get the numbers off, the legal ready for the.
And what is your school vacation?
We have requested April tenth because the following week is our school vacation.
So does April 10th make sense? That's more than 2 weeks. And
I'll
at
look at- I'll
the,
look at the calendar, I'll talk to you guys.
Yeah.
We'll get it figured.
And that calendar right here, Beth.
and then at the town meeting, we could just set the referendum date, would still be in April.
Board of Selectmen will meet and set the referendum date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I am open for motion.
Big Head makes a motion to adjourn.
I just want to say, I really appreciate the time and effort put in, the thought, and like Steve working with you has been fantastic, but that we didn't jump this year into the 2/3, 1/3, that different scenarios were presented.
I'm not crazy about that.
Yeah, don't bring it back next year.
Online chatter, we're just gonna hammer the board, so I appreciate the thought put into it. Consideration for-
Good, we have a motion from Matt, do we have a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Let's go.